Dr. Churchill, there are two things I feel that are certain and such an otherwise uncertain time that you will show up looking dapper and snazzy as ever as you are today, and that we are in such chaotic times. And I have to tell you, the way that you really framed the big picture and left us off on our episode last week about, united we stand, divided we fall, and really that lack of patriotism right now. Let's be honest. We are in such a selfish, self absorbed, nihilistic, disconnected country here in the States. And we need something bigger, right? Be it, God, if you want to call it, or, a bigger force at play, or patriotism in our country. And it's so important right now. I mean, I love this country. I know you love this country. It's not perfect, but we love this country. And we are looking at everything going on. Other countries in shambles, our adversaries, which is why it's so important to come together. We need to be a team, to come together right now as a united force. And if I may, start with something, pertaining to this. And, there's a lot of talk right now, Dr. Churchill, of be it, Venezuela or many, many countries, China, of US involvement. And something that is really on my mind right now is the affairs in Iran.
Yes.
And when we look at what's going on over there and just, I want to just dive into it. I mean, I, as a woman, feel very strongly and passionately about this, but again, the lack of patriotism here and going, let's be grateful. Let's come together for what we have here. Look at what's going on at a place, in a place like that. Right?
Yes, and I think you nailed it. As a woman, it's very important to start speaking about Iran because this is a tremendously thunderous silence. And it's not about, speaking on behalf of men. I don't speak on behalf of men here. I speak on behalf of women, the most cherished mothers, sisters and daughters that one can actually have. And that reminds us that their suffering is our suffering. Their bleeding is our bleeding. Their death is our death. Civilization cannot exist when you have, this incredible global voice that remains deafening silently today because we are dealing with the women of Iran and somehow they, the feminists of the West, the liberals, the leftists, the Democratic Party, they consider the women of Iran the same way like the Ayatollahs consider them. Chattel, animals to be kept chained into the home and covered, chained, and imprisoned under the chador, this awful dark covering that makes all of them look like blackbirds. And should a little bit of wisp of hair shows up, they get
Mm-hmm.
beaten and
Killed.
oftentimes killed. This
Killed.
is intolerable. This is not going to stand. And in some cases, when I really, really think about it, I wish, that President Trump would scoop in with the helicopters and pick up all of those mullahs and ayatollahs
Yeah.
and take them to a place of no return and liberate the women of Iran. People pray for that in
Yeah.
Iran. They say, may the American president come in and take away Ayatollah Khamenei and
Yeah.
his son and the leaders there and just get rid of them so the people can breathe again free and the women can, for one time in many, many, many years, to be able to get rid of that dark cloth that looks like a death cloth. So that's my
It's,
wish. And I put
yeah.
my appeal to the president. Please, whatever you did in Venezuela with President Maduro, do it 10 times, in Iran, in Tehran, with those, forgive my language, yeah, holes. Ha, ha, ha.
Yes, we're picking up what you're putting down. And excuse my language, you kind of got at this, but something that pisses me off as a millennial American woman who's very vocal about this issue, and those who have followed my work know that I'm so passionate about women being not the fake faux, virtue signaling or pandering feminism that we see that is ridden with hypocrisies, as you got at, but the true feminine embodiment of power, be it beauty, again, the femininity, sexuality being fully stepped in and realized, and also the capabilities intellectually and with purpose and brains and being all of it. Let's be real. You said this. These women are treated secondhand citizens doesn't even do it justice. You said they can't even show a hair and elbow. Imagine I could never dress like this in 5 seconds. It would never ever ever last. It is such a vicious, evil, oppressive regime, and something that really, as I was getting to, just grinds my gears is the are the prominent women in who are peers, I suppose, right? Maybe they're millennials or they have big platforms. um who This just happened recently. A big podcast host, for example, Alex Cooper, hosted Michelle Obama on her podcast, and afterwards Dr. Churchill went on a whole rant about how American women don't have equal rights, and it drives me insane. It drives me insane because it just reeks of ignorance, and it makes me want to go look at Iran, what's happening there. You said it. It is it's like women are treated as animals, just brutalized, covered head to toe, can't go in the street without being chaperoned. Forget, young girls riding bikes, have pursuing an education, anything. And it blows my mind. And this is coming from the same people who all day long are, social justice warriors and, want to free the oppressed, and are completely not only silent, but hypocritical about this issue. It is, it is maddening. It's truly maddening.
Yeah. It's even worse when you think about, the quality of the people oppressed. The women of Iran, again, I speak perhaps a little bit biased. I was married to one of them, and it was
Okay.
the best person in my life. And when I lost her, I was deeply saddened. I cried hard for 5 years. To this day now, it's been 5 years completed since she died. And I must say that knowing the women of Iran intimately, they're some of the best people in the world.
Yeah.
Far, far better than anybody else that I have met in terms of an intimate biblical relation. But I speak again, only because they do have modesty. They don't need enforced modesty. And what my woman told me, she said, wearing the chador, this black thing, is like carrying your own prison and walking
Yeah.
around within it.
Yeah.
It's like wearing your own prison
Yep.
in your head, in your body, in everywhere, and just being identified as a lifetime prisoner for no error of your own, for no crime, for nothing that you've done, just because of an accident of DNA that the chromosome switched and you ended up in a woman instead of a man. And the disparity in that society between the status of men and women, it shows you who the real slaves are. Women are
Yeah. You
enslaved in
said it.
Iran. And it's a bloody shame that the feminists and the liberal left and everybody else around the world, democratic countries in Europe and America, they don't talk about it. It's a greater
It's
threat to our
horrible.
civilization, the enslavement of the women of Iran, than the atomic weapons that the Ayatollahs want to obtain and use against us. It's a greatest threat to our humanity to have this tragedy occurring every
Yeah.
day in Iran than having even, the terrorism that is state sponsored by Iran all around the
Yeah.
world. So I am speaking, humbly,
Yeah.
and I request that our president, do something about it.
Yeah.
And maybe, that we all would coalesce around that and say, take action. We demand
Well,
take action, not
that
just on behalf of the women of Iran, but on behalf of the whole human civilization. Because if
that's right.
that identity that a woman should be wearing her own prison and change, all around wherever she goes, you know, that can actually take root in other countries, and as it happened in Afghanistan, as it happens
That's
around the
right.
Middle East, in Iraq, as it happens in Turkey today, as it happens in Pakistan, as it happens in other countries of the globe. It's enlarging the problem. Instead of them importing our Western democratic and liberal values, they are exporting.
Yep.
And you see that in France right now. A lot of women walking around with the same prison clothes, the
Yeah.
black chador. You see it in America in many cities. I've seen it a lot in New York. I've seen it in Washington, D.C., I've seen it in Texas, I've seen it in Chicago, and I won't even going to go about Minneapolis and some other places where all this has become the standard norm, and they have Sharia law, like in
Sharia law,
Detroit,
yeah.
Michigan,
Hmm.
and if they see a woman who is showing the hair, they do the same thing they do in Tehran. They beat her with sticks
It's
to she learn the lesson
horrifying. It's
in those Muslim
horrifying.
communities. And this is in America. And where do you think it comes from? Because they allow it to happen in Iran
You
to the
know,
women
Dr.
of Iran.
Churchill, I say
It's
this.
contagion. It's a virus.
Yes, I say this all the time. You're exactly right. It's completely dehumanizing, of course, but it's all, let's not fool ourselves. And I've had so many lengthy conversations, both people who are brainwashed in this into this ideology, and also people like, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Sheila Nazarian. I've interviewed her, and she escaped Iran with her family as a young girl, and now is a very prominent activist and successful surgeon and woman out of LA, and is very vocal about this. But I think what people don't understand is exactly what you're getting at. It's all a means of control, of stripping away dignity. And like I said, it is so dehumanizing and stripping away power. So you hit it. If they can do it with women and this, well, who else? It's just it contaminates and permeates really what people don't understand and who are so deafening. Their silence, as they like to say, is deafening. Is they want to eradicate Western ideals and
No, they want
it's,
to eradicate emancipation. They
mhm,
enslave. These
and
women are
individualism.
slaves.
Yep.
And Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, started the emancipation movement here in America. And before that, of course, in England. But still, today, to allow this slavery for half of the population of complete countries, and I'm telling you, Turkey is becoming now worse than Iran. Turkey, that used to be a Western democratic country, an ally within NATO, and now it's worse than Iran. I used to teach. I gave lectures at the university in Constantinople, in Istanbul, and in Ankara, and all the girls they were wearing very Western clothing 20 years ago. And then as I kept going again and again and again, today they're all wearing the same black prison of the woman like they do in Iran. And
Hmm.
so it is expanding instead of contracting this anomaly. And if we
That's
don't
right.
actually do something to stop it, it will be like I said, I've seen it in 5, 6 cities in the US,
Yeah,
but will be
that's
everywhere. And then people like you will be outcasted and you won't be able to be alive, and have your bubbly personality and effervescent, and being able to have the freedom of doing everything you do, same like a man in the United States, where pretty much women they actually have the control.
I've been warning people. I've been warning the people who, are either blindly and ignorantly supporting such terrorists or don't see what you're saying, the domino effect of what will happen and the privilege and again the blind, like I said, ignorance of what their daily lives, freedoms, individualism that would be stripped away like this. It's insane. And the crazy thing is not to be conspiratorial, like you're saying, we're seeing it. It's not that far off. Look at London. Look, I'm seeing it everywhere. So the $1 million question is, you know, and you've said, your plea to President Trump, right? This comes down even there's so much going on again, China, Taiwan, Venezuela, but the US intervention. And we have people out of Iran, women especially, right? We're seeing people, protesters, because there's an uprising right now, being killed in the streets, pleading for President Trump to get involved. Now, I
Yeah.
know obviously we said this last time and he was a man of his time, but in this situation, in this circumstance, what would Churchill do?
That's the point. This is exactly the point. What I plead with and what I preach to President Trump is exactly what Churchill would do. Winston Churchill would not hesitate to liberate the half of the population of Iran and the other half, and the men will follow. But to save these women from enslavement is worthwhile in the same way that Winston Churchill spoke about the liberation of the death camps of Auschwitz, Treblinka, all these things he spoke before we actually won the war. He said, this is the greatest anomaly on earth. And in my now, that's my perch, it's my time to speak. I say, this is the greatest anomaly on earth. The mistreatment, the misapplication, the misalignment, and the slavery of the women in the extremities of the Muslim world. It is the greatest catastrophe that we allow to happen without complicity in this earth. And
Mm,
if there is one issue that is primary in this world that we can prosecute and win, and if there is a war worth fighting for, I tell you, it's not about the oil of Venezuela. It's about the plight of women of Iran. And
wow.
those are the ones that we need to liberate before we even think about doing anything else. That's job number one.
Wow.
And if there is a just God, which I believe truly that He is, both in our hearts, in our minds, and up above, in the firmament of the heavens, He will guide our military forces. He will guide our president, our commander in chief to take action in Iran today, not tomorrow, and
Wow.
liberate, these amazing people who have been enslaved for far too long. I must say,
That's
out of my personal heart, my wife died when she was escaping Iran with another 162 people, and these awful people, they threw 4 missiles against the aeroplane, civilian aeroplane, full of young people, scientists who were returning to their home countries after they had a small Christmas holiday in Tehran. And they all died. The famous
wow. I'm
Ukrainian
so
flight,
sorry.
and then
Wow.
the anniversary of that was just less than 2 weeks ago. And my wife, she had a baby in her belly, a little boy, and I never got to see them again. But this is the,
Oh,
the
I'm
kind
so
of people we are
sorry.
dealing with. They're willing to kill civilians under the premise of, well, we thought they were spies, so we thought something or other. They never gave an explanation. They never had somebody put on trial for this awfulness, and it was directed from the leaders, from the top. That alone
Oh,
requires, in a just world, that the same fate should happen to the leaders of that country. They should
wow.
merit, the same in a just war. Because, as the old book says, you can't get away with murder. Thou shalt not
Mm,
kill is the number one command. And I think, these people are so blooded on
wow.
their
Yeah.
hands and their minds that they should not be part of the existence of this earth any longer. So I just
Yeah.
plead with President Trump, if you should hear this, my appeal is please
Yeah.
intervene and liberate the people of Iran. They
Well,
deserve it. They deserve better.
yeah.
And the women will rejoice while to serve. Even if they don't know it, somehow, their feeling will be uplifted. And we are going to stop the evil by killing the virus where it begins. Because this anomaly started from Iran and it expands throughout the world, east, west, north, and south, and even in our country, especially in Europe and in England and everywhere else. So Winston Churchill said, and I quote, he said, the jealousy of the Mohammedan mind when it becomes zealotry and it affects the
Yeah.
brain is like hydrophobia in the brain of the dog. And that means the dog, as you know, the illness that it suffers and it forms in the mouth if it bites you is terrible.
Hmm.
That is what this type of religious zealotry
Sure.
in Iran and some other places, affords these crazy people to behave like that. Up to
Yeah.
now, I've been tallying up the numbers, and they have killed more than 50,000 of their own citizens, almost 90% women.
Yeah.
You take the math and take it to the White House and tell the commander in chief to just do it, because this mass murder, this genocide of the women of Iran should not stand.
Dr. Churchill, I just want to leave everybody with a thought. First of all, thank you for sharing that. And for everyone who's listening, just to sit and think, right, with everything going on in the world, the fact that Dr. Churchill just said perhaps this is the most pressing issue, especially when it comes to US intervention, how significant that is. And again, if many of you are kind of teetering or on the seesaw of it's a domino effect, we get involved here. Does that mean everything else? I know it's a struggle that a lot of people grapple with. How often do we get involved? Is it every time? Is it case by case? But the implication, like you said, of what this means for our country worldwide and the spread of this. And I've always said You don't negotiate with evil. You don't negotiate with terrorists. And who better exemplified that than your grandfather? He wasn't going to negotiate with Hitler. He said absolutely not. And all I'll say to everybody is thank God, because had he negotiated, had he played nice, how would that have turned out?
We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. We'd be speaking German and dead. It's very clear in
That
my
part.
mind, and it's very clear in the mind of Winston Churchill that I carry through, that it's not about the women of Iran. It's about all the women of the whole world, 4.5 billion of them, and the other 4.5 billion the men who are dependent on the women to survive. This is what I'm talking about. There is no bigger issue for the whole entire humanity than this one, to abolish the slavery in Iran. This is what it is. It's how we can abolish slavery with a very surgical intervention. This is what I ask for. This is what I appeal to our president. Please, Mr. President, just do the thing that's going to make you the most meritorious president in the history of the world by abolishing the slavery of women. You're going to be at the same level like the greatest Lincoln, the 16th president. So maybe now you will take it under consideration how to liberate the women of Iran and to do it with force, without negotiation, and just do it without preamble. Sudden strike to free the people. You will be remembered not in history, but in your lifetime, by everybody. You will be praised. People will obviously use your name in the same way that they used Winston Churchill in the concentration camps of the Jews. But when they would see each other facing death every single day, they would whisper two words to each other to give courage. And they would say, Winston, Winston, as if Winston is going to come and liberate them. And finally he did. Finally he did. And we saw the horrors in photography, in video. And while we're waiting to see the same for the women in Iran, that's why they cut down the internet, so we don't see that
Mm-hmm.
and we don't record. But every woman who is listening to this podcast and she's not crying tears about the women of Iran and speaking about it, well, shame on them.
I second that. Dr. Churchill, I have chills, and I think that's a indicator that it's a perfect way to end this. So, thank you for your message. Your grandfather would be extremely proud. And let's hope the powers that be hear us, because it's very important, and its implications for all of us and for true freedom, which is what we're all about, right? So, um, thank you guys. Thanks everyone for listening. And I will see you, Dr. Churchill, and all of you viewers. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, Taylor. And don't forget, our cry, our war cry, our voice is liberate the slaves of Iran. Mr.
What
President,
what
remember
he
us.
said. What he
Thank you very
said.
much.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless and goodbye, everybody.
Until next time.